Hello everyone, my name is Clay, and welcome to yet another episode of Terminally Nerdy's Indie Impressions, the show where I take a look at independent and non-AAA titles, giving you my quick first impressions after at least 2 hours of playtime, because if it's good enough for Steam and all the other retailers, it's good enough for me generally. And today I'm going to be looking at a game that was provided to me by Evolve PR for the purposes of both streaming and review, and I did stream it for about 5 hours actually. A game called Little Big Workshop, developed by Mirage Games Studios and published by Handy Games and THQ Nordic. So, Little Big Workshop is a factory simulator. You are essentially going to be managing a factory that you will slowly build up as you go, and managing your little minions, producing different products, kind of like Factorio, Satisfactory, etc. However, the basic concept, as far as I can tell, is that the factory springs up on your work table, and then you're managing tiny gnomes who are building stuff. What I actually think is going on, what I personally think is going on, is that you're actually looking at a live representation of your actual factory, which is behind you, and you're like the foreman, and you're planning it on your planning table, and then expanding it as you go, because the way it looks like graph paper, and it looks like a plan. So that's what I think is actually happening. This is a simulation game. There's no real story here other than build up your factory, make lots of money, and eventually you start dealing with competition, and that's pretty much it. Mechanically, the game is fairly easy to learn, but it is definitely hard to master. As you play, you'll get a tutorial. Excuse me. And the tutorial is pretty straightforward. It teaches you how to produce items, it teaches you how to read the market, it teaches you how to set up your blueprints, because you actually do get to customize the things you're building with different materials, and you have to use different machines to handle different pieces of the production. So, like, for example, if you're going to make a plastic duck, well, you have to decide what color plastic you're going to use. You have to decide which of the injection machines you're going to do the first step on. Then you have to decide which paint machine you're going to paint the duck on. And then you can set up the production of your ducks. And you set up runs, so you can make like 20 ducks, etc. And you basically are trying to look at the market and determine, okay, well, the market says I have, a demand of like 27 ducks. So I'm going to make 20 ducks to sell on market, and I'll get this much profit based on how much time it's going to take me, how much materials are going to cost. All of that is very laid out in a very easy to read way when you're setting everything up. Now, visually the game is very appealing. It's cute as hell. It's built in Unity. Doesn't seem like it requires a whole lot to run. I was running it on the maximum settings while streaming and it looked fine. I don't imagine it takes a whole lot to run it in general. And it's very customizable. You have a lot of options when it comes to setup. Eventually you'll upgrade through the tech tree, and there is a tech tree, the ability to build more rooms, demolish rooms. You start unlocking specialized tools. Like, you start with just an assembly station and a general work desk, and the work desk can cover pretty much all wood items, and the steps for wood, like cutting, jigsawing, gluing. There's a whole lot of steps here. And as you play, you'll slowly build up money, you'll build up XP, but your objective really is to beat certain objectives to advance to another tier. So you start in the tutorial tier, and when you finish that, you go to bronze. And bronze has a set of objectives you need to complete to go to silver. It's kind of like gauging how well you're doing and locking more difficult things behind, like, almost like a mini quest. And the hardest part for me getting into silver was doing the client challenges. There are clients. They will sometimes call you and request specific items in specific quantities in a specific time frame with specific stats. All items have stats. They have durability. They have style. You have to meet those requirements in order to produce the item. And that can get a little challenging sometimes. If you don't have certain material access, you won't be able to do it. And thankfully, the game won't allow you to execute blueprint plans if you can't meet the requirements for it. And thankfully, on the client challenge side, when you select the client challenges, you can actually pre-plan the challenge so you can see if you can actually complete it. It's really handy. So there's a lot going on here. As far as complaints go, I only really have two, and that's the game doesn't explain two very important things very well. And those things are batch production and billboards. So batch production, when you're going to make items in your blueprint stage, you will see a checkbox for batch. And it's usually right above the amount of items you want to make. So like, I want to make 20 ducks. Why would I ever pick this batch thing? It doesn't explain what batching means. And if you hover over batch, you will see what it's trying to say, but it doesn't really explain it very well. Here's what batching is. If you want to make, say, 20 catapults, which are highly complex items, you can set it to batch them so it will actually try and complete 5 catapults at a time rather than trying to build all the pieces and then assemble all the pieces at the end. This allows you to set up complex work to constantly have an influx of money, because you don't have to complete all 20 to sell them. You can actually go in and sell piecemeal, which I would do constantly just to get an influx of cash. So anything that's above maybe 2 lines in the blueprint stage, you might want to consider batching, if you're going to make a lot of them, just because that gives you a constant source of them to sell, rather than the game and your minions waiting till they basically build everything, all the pieces, and then assemble them at the end. I learned this because I did a highly complex thing called large drawers, which was like almost like an end table, like a dresser, basically, which was highly complex, and I put 40 of them in an order, and I didn't select batch because I didn't know what it was, and the dev, Mirage Games, was actually in my chat, and apparently this flipped them out. They were like, wait, did he just do that? I completed them, though. I did it. It was nuts, but I did it. So, ooh, lots of money. Beyond that, the other thing is billboards. So, when you're building plans, you have to assign steps of production to specific workstations. So, using the duck example, the duck has 2 production steps. It has a step for injection molding and a step for painting. And if you have multiple injection molds and multiple paint stations, you can't use them to spread the work out easily unless you have a billboard. Because the billboard will attach itself to multiple stations of the same type. So if I have 3 injection molds, and I place a billboard down, I can hook it to all 3 injection molds. And then when I go to make my ducks, I can say, well, I want you to do the injection molding on this group of molds. And the game will automatically spread the work out over 3 stations, which will then allow me to produce faster. And you can do that with any of the workstations. So if you have a bunch of assembly stations, the final step is putting the object together generally. If you've got like 4 assembly stations, you can hook one billboard to all 4 of them. And then you can assign assembly steps in a group to that 4 block. And then your little minions will know to spread out the work across 4, thus speeding up production. There's a lot more other mechanics that I didn't really get into. You can specialize characters, which I did not mess around with at all. And eventually, when you cross out of bronze and get into silver, the game will start hitting you with events. Because when you cross into silver, you suddenly have a nemesis, and there's a whole company, and they will call you on your phone, and they will harass the shit out of you. His name is Blood. Blah. I used this voice when I was talking to him, because he's like all vampire-y. Blah. And, he will do things like infest your workplace with brain slugs, hit you with rats, gnome infestations. The funny thing is these are actually fairly engaging minigames. They're actually enjoyable to do, and completing them gives you money. In fact, it was those kind of events that kept me afloat while I was trying to do the 40 large drawers, because I would constantly dip, and then I would do one of these would pop up right when I'm at like negative $1,000, and I'd be able to do it and go back up into the positive. You bankrupt at negative 5,000, by the way. So as long as you can produce and sell items before you hit negative 5,000, you're fine. But it gets dicey. There's a lot of expansion. Your factory can get very big. You won't be able to do any sort of land expansion until you're in silver. The tech tree is locked based on your rank. So in bronze, you only have access to the top row of your tech tree. You have to complete all the bronze objectives to go into silver to get the next rank. Beyond that, it's a fantastic game. If I play it again, and I probably will actually, it's fairly relaxing. What I'll probably end up doing is starting over, because efficiency is a big deal here. You need to make sure that your workplace is well set up. You're going to need break rooms, because your workers do run out of stamina, and your break rooms need to be well stocked with coffee machines and fridges, so that way they can replenish their stamina very quickly. You can run out, so you need a big break room. You need to make sure that the workspace areas are actually well, I guess the word would be decorated, because basically the comfort level in a workspace is a big deal. If the workspace comfort level is low, the workers will use up more stamina and work more slowly. There's decorations, there's a whole bunch of mechanical buttons up in the upper right corner that let you very clearly see these are the comfort levels, these are how much stamina you have available for people to come in, basically how many cups of coffee. The game gives you all the information you need. It also has an extensive help system up in that corner, which can let you just read through. The only other thing I feel this game is missing is a pause button, so I can pre-plan. I would love it if I could hit a pause button to stop time, and then set up movement, because you can move objects, thank God. Just for the record, you right-click on any workstation, you can actually move it. There is time. People have to walk over, pick up the item, and move it. But you can move things to rearrange rooms, and you'll see me start to do that in this footage as I'm trying to kind of build better rooms. You don't want giant rooms, by the way. The bigger the room, the more it gets a penalty to the comfort level. So the more like plants and things you have to put in there. Which honestly, I want to mention that is a real good representation of office life. Because I work in a cubicle, and plants are, oddly enough, just having that little bit of life in a cold, sterile environment, weirdly enough, does help people. You know, I have a lot of coworkers who have little plants on their desk, just because having a plant on your desk will make you feel better. It's real weird, but it is actually, like, logical to this. You can hire different kinds of workers. It's incredibly in-depth. And it's $20. It's $20 on Steam. And it's well worth the $20. Wholeheartedly. If you like what you're seeing, if you like this sort of game, go pick it up. Little Big Workshop on Steam. After this video, I'm probably going to go start a new game and actually make something a little bit better. And I will see you all later on the next episode of Indie Impressions. Thanks for watching. Hey there, I just want to say thank you for watching this video, and a special thank you to all my patrons who are listed over there on the right hand of the screen. If you want to get your name in those credits, feel free to check it out at patreon.com/terminallynerdy. And hey, be kind to each other and stay nerdy. Thanks.